and we're going to get that as the climax. No, thank you so much for that story.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Bob Moore, reading tonight his short story, They've Restarted the Mill at Killington, has published numerous short stories, ghost and otherwise. Living now on Cape Cod, he's delighted to return virtually to Theatre 3 and work with old friends. They've Restarted the Mill at Killington first appeared online in 2003, then in Lycan Press, Revisiting the Undead in 2019. Hope it makes you a little scared of old mills. Bob?
Killington straddles a stream bed between two wooded hills. The village is just a few short streets of old buildings and houses, all sagging at least a little. Killington Road, the only road in, is a two-laner off Route 2. It runs by the mill, long since abandoned. The mill is what put us here, a mill now in pieces. The metal wheels rusted and seized, the wooden arms rotted and broken, some once useful equipment carted away when it was worth something. The steel supports are spattered in bird droppings from the birds that roost in the scaffolding. And of course, there's myself, Hugh Crane, and my neighbors, Emma Thigpen and Calvin LaSalle. Emma's around the bend, an old weaver herself who now talks daily to her dead sister and mother like they were all still having coffee. Calvin stays busy keeping his little shop open, hoping a stranger wanders in for a paper and coffee and donut. Me? I'm like Emma, retired from the mill. I read a lot. It's very quiet here, which is why we could hear it and feel it when it started, very gently, first day of spring, like a pulse returning. 2 nights ago, I heard it for the first time. A whooshing noise came into my bedroom window on the night air. The rhythmic clacking echoed in the hollow, stirred some old memories, and I listened for a long while in my bedroom, looking out into the dark. Then I smelled it. The coal the mill burned for heat. Then in the moonlight I saw smoke rising from its central chimney. I thought it caught fire. Kids have said it now and then. But this smoke had no flame. It puffed from the chimney. I didn't hear talk. I didn't hear men working. It was like the mill started on its own, not needing us. After an hour, as suddenly as it began, sound stopped. The smoke blew away. Only when the smoke was gone could I get back to sleep. Emma was out front next morning when I stepped out to get my paper, arching her neck, savoring the scent of the coal smoke. "Morning, Hugh," she smiled at me. "Lovely day, ain't it?" "Morning, Emma." I'm not very talkative. "It was good to see the mill back working, wasn't it?" "You saw that, did you?" I asked, suspicious of my own wits as well as of hers. "What do you mean back working?" Leaning over to pick up a scrap of litter from her tiny front lawn, she straightened up her stick-thin frame, gritting her dentures in a spasm of back pain. "Just what I said. They must have started a night shift last night. I heard them start near midnight. They went till near 7. You can see it better than I can from your end. You must have seen it, didn't you?" There's maybe 30 souls left in Killington Falls, only a handful of us still in the row houses near the mill. I never seemed to get farther than Cal's store. Life would get very dull if the last few souls I knew decided I was too contrary to talk to. So I nodded agreeably. "Oh, sure, yeah, I saw. Yep, hope to keep it up." And with an exchange of smiles, I left her to her litter policing, and I went for my paper. Calvin LaSalle has the worst coffee in New England, but the closest paper. Pushing open the heavy screen door, he's got half covered with advertising stickers for Coca-Cola and Marlboro and Sara Lee and all the other crap he sells. The bill he hung on it when his hearing started to go, announced me. I hate ringing it because I'm not talkative, but there's no choice if I want my paper. Ring. Morning, Hugh. Morning, Cal. He was busy with a pencil and scrap of brown paper bag, standing in front of his aisle of fruit pies and donuts. How many men you think they're going to be hiring with the mill starting up again, he asked. I'm ordering more papers, and I might expand to take care of the morning crowd. The barbershop next door has been closed 5 years. I could probably rent it cheap. Calvin lives over his shop, which is 3 blocks from my house. He couldn't quite see the smoke from there, but he had smelled it and heard the looms. Now he's pacing up and down his aisles, counting the Twinkies twice, adding figures he's scratched on the bag. But the only pencil I've ever seen him with, Black Hawk #2, half an eraser. Yeah, I recall back when they were going 3 shifts, I go through 10, 12 pots of coffee an hour. Lots of donuts, too. You think that yogurt stuff is still popular? My cooler isn't working too good. He was chattering, not waiting for an answer to one question before asking the next, babbling like a boy going to the fair. I could understand Emma slipping out of her mind for a moment, she having been half already, and I had heard and smelled something from the mill last night. But vandals were probably responsible for that. Cal, before you start giving the grocery store a run for their money, how much have you made so far from the new shift? He looked from his figures, irritated. Hell, Hugh, I ain't stupid. He opened the register's cash drawer. You know my usual day. Past 5 years, I don't clear $20 some mornings. He stepped aside to show me his new profits. It wasn't seeing more money that shut my mouth. It was the money I saw. Cal had collected a 20 or 2 and then 3 $2 bills. I leaned closer, and their year of issue was 1932? Cal, when did you pick these up? Just after 7, Hugh, when the night shift left. I headed back home. In my front room, I have family snapshots of us as children, as parents, as soldiers, and one of myself taken on my retirement. The one I was looking for was my father standing at his loom. He's on the left. It's hard to say why or how this picture was taken, as the mill was no photo studio. My father is dressed in a collarless shirt, mustached and staring at the photographer. Standing next to him is another man. I noticed today that the second man had only 3 fingers on one hand. Not uncommon, those industrial accidents. In the afternoon, when it's clear out, I like to go up to the hill to the cemetery and spend some time with Mom and Dad and my friends there. I'm not talkative, and they aren't either, so I can spend hours in their quiet company. But today I headed downhill to the mill. The front gate was badly rusted, but I got it open. Weeds grew tall through gaps in the old brick walkway, one sprout in the middle of the door. The splashing of the stream below was a sweet sound you couldn't hear when the mill was running. Today I heard the stream just fine. Everything looked normal, sad. So I hoped Cal hadn't put any money into expansion. And it turned around and I went home. Even though it got chilly when the sun set, I set my kitchen window open. When I walked by it en route to my second beer after the evening news, I looked out down the hill and saw smoke billowing from the center chimney, and tonight from the north chimney as well. And then the clattering of the machinery came rolling up the hill. That clattering was once the town's pulse, a huge metronome to which we all worked. 60 years later, you'd think I'd be happy, sentimental over hearing the clanking of the mill. But I'd been there today, and it was an empty, abandoned shell. I never got to that beer. I stayed in the house with the window shut and the blinds drawn. I could still feel the mill rattling the floor. I tried to turn on my TV, but the vibrations just made the scroll and scroll. I couldn't even watch Jeopardy. So I turned on the radio to get a little news. Got one of those radio reenactments. General MacArthur is clearing out the Japanese in the Marianas. Do tell. After more news about our troops in the Pacific, I turned off the radio and turned out the light and felt the town's pulse. At dawn, it finally stopped, and I finally got to sleep. Tonight, all 3 chimneys puffed. Still black as the night, I wondered why they needed heat but no light. I never did learn the answer to that. I felt it through my feet, through my hands when I leaned against the windowsill. Fear is not an emotion I put up with. I refuse to worry about breaking my bones or catching flu, and I eat what I like. But by the 3rd night of the mill's rumbling, I was afraid. Not of the mill. I grew up with it, and I don't fear it, but of someone from the mill. If the mill had come back, who would come back to work it? A little later, I got my coat on and went to see. The entrance was open. John Francis Gates was in there. I could hear him, tall and powerful, more sturdy a man than was needed for watching the time clock. Gates also kept out union organizers. We all hated him for various reasons. One was that he made us pay him a penny a week for the privilege of getting our cards punched. Some paid him more to punch the right time when they ran late. If you refused, he clocked you an hour late for 3 days. If you still had a job after that, he'd wait outside for you, or be at your home first light, or find you in an empty place. Then he'd put you in the hospital. The owner may have known, but Gates was clever. Nothing was ever done. Gates's other job was to assign men to the trap. The trap was the gearing mechanism that converted the stream's flow to power the loom. It required daily greasing and to have fibers cleaned out. Besides being messy, it was dangerous, as the owner refused to shut down the loom for more than 10 minutes at noon, the time he gave us to eat lunch. In 10 minutes' time, the owner had to squeeze into the gearing trap and slather grease on 3 main gears and 6 main bearings. You could just barely get it done and get out in time, because at 12:10, the drive wheel was engaged again. Gates was also responsible for warning the man inside when he had only a minute to get out. But sometimes he went out back for a quick snort or tried to make time with one of the women weavers. Most guys got themselves out, and a few lost fingers, one a foot, when the machinery started turning all around them. Young Johnny McClellan and an older guy from Poland, they only came out in pieces. See, the machinist was under strict orders to start up at 12:10, and he couldn't see the trap from where he was. So it was up to Gates. Sometimes the bastard was there, and sometimes not. You can guess getting on Gates' bad side got you sent to the trap. I went 3 times and here I'm inside. When I went in, Crane! He was leaning back in his chair, his black hair, a dirty mop, and a toothpick stuck in his teeth. Smelled too. And this was all clearly a dream. And